there, and welcome to the Thriving Blind series of interviews with people that are succeeding without sight. Hey, I'm Kristen Smedley, and I am so happy that you landed here. Whether you are a parent raising a blind child to not just survive their diagnosis, but to thrive, or if you yourself have a blindness or visual impairment and you're trying to figure out how to not just survive, but to thrive, you landed in a great spot. I'm so happy you're here. And you can get direct access, up close direct access every week to mentors like the person you're about to meet through our Thriving Blind Academy membership program. Check that out at thrivingblind.com. You'll get all the information there. But for now, let's jump in and see who we're meeting today. Let's do it. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another fun video interview, chit chat. Kristen losing her mind to chat with somebody in the field of blindness, visual impairment, thriving blind. We have she doesn't know yet, but she's my new best friend, Michele Spitz, who is a voiceover artist and audio description professional. And you guys, I am so super excited about this because, I made the kids hide with the dogs so I don't hear any barking or distractions, because my boys and I have been on the receiving end of Michelle's talent and professionals like her, their talents for years. So you are like a rock star to me. I am so excited to talk with you. So Michele, thanks so much for taking time out of your Friday, nonetheless, to sit down and chat with us about what you do. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
And you said, where exactly are you again? That you said you're in California?
I live in San Francisco.
San Francisco. It's gorgeous there.
Very pretty city. Very pretty city. I travel, though, mostly to New York and Southern California to do my work.
You're kidding. You come all the way out to New York? Oh, I guess so.
All the time.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I'll try to be a normal professional here and not like this mom that is fangirling all over this whole thing. Let's talk for a second. Here's my biggest question for folks like you that are in this field doing this kind of work. Do you have somebody in your life or somewhere along your journey that's blind or visually impaired? Oh, your sound just cut out. You can't hear me either?
Okay.
There you are. There you are.
I didn't hear you. I'm so sorry.
No, it's the world we're living in now with Zoom and Facebook Live. You never know what's going to happen.
I didn't hear the question.
I'm wondering if you got into this work because you have somebody. Is there someone in your life that is blind or visually impaired or along your journey somewhere?
No, that is not the case. Actually, my brother is autistic. And so my passion towards disability and accessibility in the arts and the philanthropy that I'm involved in and everything I do culminated into audio description by accident. It was by default. I didn't know what it was either 7 years ago. And so it came to me by virtue of somebody who was working at Universal Studios, who wanted to go into accessible media. He was retiring at the age of 50.
Oh man, the sound cut out again. I can't hear you. Isn't Facebook and Zoom fun?
Oh boy.
There you go. There you go. It's all right.
All right. So
we've learned to be patient in the pandemic.
Okay. So what I was saying was my journey started with a film actually about two brothers that are visually impaired. Wow. And I did their documentary, and I gave a grant, and I actually voiced their film so it could be accessible. So that is how the journey started.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, so now I'm watching people that are tuning in, and they're probably, some of them have no idea what we're talking about with audio description. So let's back up and talk about what that is.
Yeah. Okay. So audio description is a secondary audio track that is utilized for describing all the visual content for media. Could be gaming, could be film, could be television, could be broadcast, could be live events, museums, so on and so forth. And basically, what we are doing is we're providing, I want to say, a picture with words for those that are low vision and blind to sort of assimilate what everything is happening on screen. And with the description in between dialogue or in between events, we are describing everything we have room to describe, and it's perfectly time-coded in between dialogue. And that paints the entire picture with words. In other words, so we can envision what that entire storytelling is. It gives it texture and sort of a backdrop. But it happens in live theater, it happens everywhere. And I'm involved in lots of different ways as far as audio description is concerned. But I work on a lot of documentaries, and I work on a lot of films about subject matters of people with disabilities. So we want to be sure all media that has a subject of a disability in the story itself must be accessible to other disabilities, being those that are low vision and blind and those that are hard of hearing and deaf. So that's part of how it got started, but it journeyed for 7 years. I'm now into over 65 film projects, and I have actually funded and produced and voiced about 80% of them. I give grants to make it happen.
Wow. So what is your organization that does that?
It's
that gives
me.
the grants? It's
It's
you.
my business.
Hold on, the audio cut out again. Let's see. For some reason, it goes out for like 20 seconds and then it'll come back in.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Woman of Her Word is my business, and my business functions as a business as well as a philanthropist. And so I am funding different entities and projects and things that I hand pick out. And then I make sure that that media is accessible. So it's a grant that I provide.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So I have a million questions in my head, and I'm going to try to just go one at a time, and they're going to be all over the place.
Okay.
I have been talking to, there's a group that I've met through this incredible organization called Unblinded. And there's a new nonprofit that has started, and they are coordinating a film festival for blind filmmakers.
Oh, I'd like to know about them. I'd like to be introduced to them.
Yeah, so I'll make that connection. And I'm thinking, so let's walk people through this. If there's a filmmaker, these happen to be blind filmmakers, but any filmmaker, if they wanted to get audio description, how do they do that? How do they just contact you?
Yes. Okay. So there's a number of ways. So basically, there are many post-production houses that produce audio description. So they can go to a post-production.
Oh man. It went out again. It's okay. For some reason, it goes out for 10 seconds, or it's a patient crowd. I'm looking, we have a mom named Kim Owens. Her and her son Kai just watched Cloverland with audio description.
They did.
Cloverfield.
Okay.
Cloverfield.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So anybody who's working on media, basically they go to a post-production house, and a post-production house
It's out again. I wonder if it's a Zoom issue.
Yeah.
There you go. I don't know why that keeps happening.
I don't either, and I don't know where I lost you there. I don't know what you had heard. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear what I mentioned, that people go to a post-production house?
That's the beginning, and then it cut off.
Okay, so most people will go to a post-production house to have this work done. Some people wait till they get distribution, and sometimes the distributors will actually create the assets, like Netflix and Hulu and places like that. But I work with a lot of individual filmmakers, and I take on the project and make sure that they have the assets as they move through their process in distributing their film for education.
So one of the viewers, our friend Mike, is saying, do you have an external mic, or is it internal in the computer? That must be the problem.
I didn't hear you.
Mike, one of our viewers is saying, do you have an external microphone, or is it internal in the computer?
It's in my computer.
Okay, Mike, what do we need to do? This is what I love about live, because then when there's a problem, the people can tell you what to do. If it's external, check the connection. No, it's internal. Maybe it's just a connection issue.
I do not know.
Okay, so it cut out like a few words into what you were saying. So if they need to have the audio description, they contact you.
Well, I'm one person they can contact. I'm hired to do it. I also give grants. But most people either go to a post-production house and they have it created, or the distributor that they get aligned with may have it also created. Depends on who the distributor is. A lot of the independent films are the ones that don't always get the description, or foreign films. So I work on a lot of independent films that end up on PBS, that end up theatrical, but I take a lot of special projects that may not have otherwise necessarily been, should I say, allocated audio description.
Okay. And then let me ask you that. Here's my burning question. At what point do you think it'll happen that every single movie, let's just start there, and TV show has to have audio description? Do you think that's coming? Because I'm a little tired of being frustrated.
That's a very good question. Let me answer it in a different way. Okay. This is a very long process. Meaning that last year it was mandated, which was a huge step, that all movie theaters are required to have audio description headsets and captioning bars for the deaf and hard of hearing, and then the audio description headsets for the blind and low vision. That's a huge step. That took years to happen.
Yes.
Okay, so at least we know when people go to the movie theaters, more likely than not, they will have the equipment. Is it always working, and does everybody hand them the right equipment? Not always. No. But it is mandated by law, all right? So we've come a long way. Broadcast, there's a certain number of hours per network per week that are mandated to be accessible, and that's not every network. So this is a long road. I don't know when we might get to that point, but I would say to you that we are in a time in our lives where everything needs to be more accessible. And actually, truthfully, because of the pandemic and that we've gone virtual essentially for an unlimited amount of time, now it's even more important. But the other thing is, and this is an interesting point, now that we've raised the Black Lives Matter and the umbrella of diversity is being talked about, and inclusivity and parity and women's rights and so on and so forth, now the subject matter of accessibility and equal audience share, I call it, is now very prevalent. And you're going to watch how this time is going to grow. A lot of things are going to happen.
Oh, hold on. We had a good run there. I think it's just a connection. It's all right. It comes back in. Is there a script to follow for audio description, or is it something?
I'm going to turn my phone off. It could be interference. I'm so sorry.
I hosted a podcast years ago that had that problem.
Okay, Stephen, can you turn your phone off? Okay, I just turned my off.
It's like an airplane.
Yeah, that's right.
So airplanes, I remember those.
Me too. Oh, boy, do I miss those. So did you hear the majority of my answer?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're a ways away is what I want to say to you. But what I will say is each coast has a different sensibility about it. And the East Coast has a different sensibility. The West Coast, it's now moving into the Hollywood conversations, if you want to call it Hollywood. The Europeans have a very different approach. They're more proactive than we are. All the museums are accessible. The UK, a lot of the charitable organizations are funded by the government. In the US, a lot of it is not funded in that manner, but maybe by the Department of Education, and there are grants that are allotted. Or allocated rather. So finding funding for all of this is not always easy, but when you lean on the distributors and the platforms, HBO Max will have audio description, by the way, just so you know. So we know Hulu, Netflix, HBO Max, and you will start to see other things come forward.
Wow. I mean, I was thrilled and stunned when Netflix had my oldest son was so into Stranger Things. Years ago. And when he told me that, I'm a nerd. I had tears in my eyes because I'm like, oh my God. Cause here's the thing with my boys, like so many blind and visually impaired kids, they are in regular mainstream public schools. My boys were on championship Little League baseball teams as all-stars.
Love it.
to their generation, they're like, what do you mean that you can't access things? Because my boys go out there and do everything. They didn't, and we're actually having some issues now with my 20-year-old who's going to be a junior at Penn State. The world isn't ready yet for someone like him,
Yeah.
ready to access everything. However, all that being said, I will tell you, I mean, years ago, Michael, my oldest, has always been into movies, and my second son couldn't have cared less in the beginning.
Interesting.
You know, so, and Michael wanted all the audio. Mitchell is not a big fan of audio description, but when it's done well, he notices the difference.
And he's right.
Talk over the characters and all of that.
That's right.
Michael's like, no, this one's done well. It's done right. So then Mitchell will listen. But Michael's just always been Michael's been very into pop culture. Anything that's going on that everybody's talking about, he wants in.
I see.
When audio description came along, and then when he started telling me, because I wasn't going to the movies anymore, who has time to do that, right? And he's always there with his friends. He said, Mom, everywhere I go, audio description's available, and the headsets work.
That good. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so pleased to hear that. By the way, I have a movie for him. Does he like magic at all?
Yeah.
There's a fabulous film I worked on, and it has an edge to it. It's called Dealt. It's about Richard Turner, who is what he likes to call himself a card mechanic. And it's really well done. We've presented in movie theaters together. We've talked about it. We met at Apple with the accessibility team, and we talked to the team there about the film. I think your son might really like, I've worked on a lot of things, but that particular film and the audio description, I have to say, is very nicely digestible.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm going to tell him, because he's always looking for movies that have the audio description that are good ones.
He's going to like this film, and I want to hear his response. And if he doesn't like it, don't call me.
That's so great.
But you know, the sports, by the way, on another note with your other son, you know, I was contacted recently by Fox because they're doing sports and they're having live announcers, but they're doing them audio described. So now, yeah, so that's going to be happening also. So I will send you an email later, but that's also in the works. I'm not part of that because you have to live in LA to be in the studio, but it's something I would have considered had I lived down there. So your son might like that.
Wow, they will go crazy for that. Yeah. They're so sports, everything.
Yeah, I think it's boxing. I want to say maybe it's car racing. It's going to be a number of things.
Oh my God. Do you know what we do here at our house? We are huge, like ridiculous Eagles fans for football, right? Okay. And we are friends with the announcer for our Eagles, Merrill Reese, who has this iconic voice that's amazing, right? Yeah. We turn down the sound on the TV and put the radio on and sync them.
Interesting.
Merrill does play-by-play, and the TV announcers don't give enough. And my boys are always like, Mom, if our lives depended on you telling us what's happening in the game, because I go, oh my God, and they're like, what's happening? You know?
Well, because you're the audio describer.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
That's definitely a job I will never have. I have 57 jobs. Audio description and waitressing are not in my wheelhouse. You will have to go find somebody else to do that, because that is not my gift. It's not my brilliance.
Hysterical. I will give you a link to that because and they're going to be expanding the sports. So I will find out a little bit more for you and I'll send it to you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I love that, because that would be great to have it right on the TV. So, you know, so many times the radio doesn't line up with the TV.
Yeah. And I don't know how exactly this is working, but I know there's an actual announcer, and then the describer is describing all in between where there's room to say what they need to say. So I think it's going to work very well together. And by the way, the other thing I was touching upon earlier, and your boys may or may not be interested, but all games are mandated to be audio described now.
All of them?
Gaming.
Well, let me just tell you this. I don't know. You have to go back, and I'll send you my Facebook post. About maybe a month and a half ago, in the midst of this horrible pandemic, and we're losing our minds, right? Michael comes in. I'm going to end up in tears. He had the same, every now and again in his life, he is so touched by something that just changes him. And it came into this office and said to me, Mom, Madden 20 is fully accessible. And 20 and a half years old, and had a look like a 7-year-old on his face.
Bless his heart.
And they have, so I'm on Facebook and I'm like, and there's my boys with right up on the TV. I don't know why. I go, I guess that's just what boys do. They get up on the TV to play the game, right? They're right close to it. I have no idea why. And I took a picture and I'm like, this is one of the greatest days in our journey that they are playing. And I couldn't wait for, like, now of course fist fights have broken out. Like there's all tears and then people, you cheat. And I'm like, I love it. They're in the, what everyone's been talking about for 20 years.
Yep.
They're doing.
Yep. Tell them it's mandated by law now. It's mandated. It happened last year.
Wow. I couldn't, I even was like, get the expedited copy sent right to you. I don't care what it costs.
Fantastic.
Let's play this game. Of course, I stink at video games. That's my other thing, not in my wheelhouse. But oh my God. It's just, I remember when we first got, I don't know if you know Tom Wachowski from Comcast.
Yes, I actually interviewed him.
Isn't he magnificent?
Yes, I remember a number of years ago, I co-interviewed him with Ability Magazine.
He's I met him we were speaking at a conference together when Comcast first came out with their talking guide.
Yep.
We were both speakers, and then he ended up in my book, but he's just so fun. But when they came out with that talking guide, I'm like, they did a video of us talking about the impact. And it was actually like their biggest social media thing they had ever done.
Fantastic.
Because my thing is, well, people just don't realize that this is all inaccessible. And I said, when I get to leave the room, I don't have to be in the room for these boys that have independently, I mean, Michael was the valedictorian of his high school, like their accomplishments, they run circles around most kids. But then when they can't even access the TV, something so simple.
There's a disconnect. That's a disconnect in the world. Yeah.
Yes, but that's a frustrating spot.
Of course it is. And things will change. You'll see as time goes on. More voices, more advocacy, more awareness will bring light to as much as we can. But I can tell you, just by the ADA 30 anniversary that just happened on Sunday, there is, if you look at all the companies that were aligning with the ADA 30 as disability, and by the way, beyond that, accessibility in terms of media, WGBH, AT&T. I voiced an event called ADA 30 Lead On, which is all about the ADA, and it was a 2-hour program. But all the people that I watched that were making, should I say, contributions towards the ADA were talking about accessibility. So now that's really more than, we're not talking about just disability anymore. Now we're embracing accessibility. So I can guarantee you're going to see some very big movements happen now to be inclusive in the way that we are supposed to be. But sometimes these are baby steps, but I see these steps being more than baby right now.
I would say the same thing. I mean, because I feel like, and maybe you'll agree with this, it's in the past, I would say, 7, 8 years ago, it started a big push, and then it kind of, I didn't see much for a while. And all of a sudden, in the past 3 years, I just feel like it's one thing after
That's right.
another.
That's absolutely correct. I've been doing this for 7 years. I would have never imagined we'd be where we are, except I was dreaming that we would be, and I have bigger dreams where we're going. So I think it's going to be very impressive. I really do. So I think there's a lot to look forward to, but it does require a lot of people talking out loud and asking for what they need. And I always say, I think advocating as opposed to activist, there's a different approach to things. I appreciate the activism. That's from individuals really who are in it and they need what they need. I like to call myself an advocate because I'm coming from another position here where I can advocate for them to make sure that I can do as much as I can to help everybody. But there are different angles in which you can come into this, different prongs, and raise the awareness universally all the way around.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. Advocating, I always say to my kids, don't go at it angry. It angers us, some of it, but when if your message is angry, it just pushes everybody away as opposed to a story and informing and saying why it's important and what can I do?
I think there's truth in that. And I think there's a place for everybody at the table. Some people feel and do need to be activists because their voices are very strong and they need to be heard. And there is it
went out again. We were doing so good. It'll come back in. Oh, Kelly wants the sports link. Kelly, I'll get it to you. I'll find out. I guess it was in the regular sports, the video game. wherever Michael ordered it online. He didn't actually have it in a disc. He ordered it online. But I'll get you that link. I'll figure out I'll have Michael tell me where to order that video game.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good.
It's almost like we're planning it this way, that I answer a question and then we come back. It's a new format.
Well, it's a makeshift. No, what I was saying was I think there's a place for everybody, and people have a right to be really, should I say, grounded in their cause and speak their truth and what they need. And there are those of us who may feel more comfortable being advocates and approaching it with grace as much as we can. But there is a place for everybody because they need to be heard. And wherever you find your place at the table, just find a seat.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Here's my burning question, back to the actual audio description.
Yeah.
You record in your regular voice and speed it up, or are you really talking that fast sometimes?
Oh, no. Oh, that's a very good question. Okay. So I have a certain pace. It's sort of my own signature of how I read. When your sons listen to Dell, maybe you should all watch it together. And you'll experience it. I happen to like to read at a pace where it's not so fast, and it is time coded. Now, when it has to be sped up, I'm not speeding it up. It goes to my engineer and my editor. They're placing it and mixing it into the media. They time code it as such so that there is room. If something becomes not enough room, we then compress it. But generally speaking, that is not what we want to be doing. So no, I do not read a certain, should I say, pace. When it says read briskly, I might read a little faster. But generally speaking, I want to take my time. I'm very mellifluous in what I do. And I really like what I do. And I want to give it breathing room, and I want to bring warmth to it.
It's so, because sometimes I'm like, man, how are they going through and doing that? Like, and now she's walking with a knife and she's about to stab the guy and the guy doesn't see her, you know?
Well, actually, you just did it. Now that's exactly what I don't want to.
Oh, shoot, it went out again. Oh my God. I know sometimes it's like, I figured that they had to be speeding it up or whatever. Wait, let me see, is your sound back in? Oh, it's not back in yet. There you go. There you go.
Okay, so here's my version of that. He walks across the room and then he gives her a kiss. Your version is he walks across the room and he gives her a kiss. That's exactly what I don't want to do.
I'm like, man, we've talked about that. Me and the boys have talked about that. Like, do they have to read it that fast? And I'm like, are they watching and narrating as they see it? But you're actually reading a script, you're saying.
Well, actually, a lot of us have watched the media and we're doing it with the script. It's a combination.
Okay.
And it depends. You know, generally speaking, they've got the media in front of them and they're reading a script. It's already been time coded. It's very laborious and it's very algebraic in many ways. And then it's specifically placed in between dialogue. That's an art form. That's an engineering art form.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, gosh, because I do the sound mixing for our podcast, and it's like, I can't even imagine what goes into doing that.
Oh, no, I can imagine. But as I said, everybody reads at a different pace. Some people they're time coding their scripts really quickly. Some films have very little room for us to say much. So we're doing the best we can.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes it's like the scene is going so fast. I can't even describe it if there's no audio description, what's happening so fast.
Yes, and by the way, a lot of people are using audio description now like audio film as opposed to audio books. You could be cooking and cleaning, you could be driving. A lot of other people are using it now for many reasons. I've walked out of my own room and listened to my own narration for an entire film and wanted to experience it without looking at it, and I know exactly how to digest it, and I get a real sense of what I'm able to do.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. You know, my kids and I, from the time they were little, loved listening to audiobooks in the car. Even my daughter, my sighted daughter, got an appreciation for that, just listening to the books. I have a super fun story I wanted to share with you. So Michael was the theater. He was in the sound. He does the sound for the theater in his high school. Now he's in college doing that. And my Mitchell does it too.
Fantastic.
Years ago, we went to a show at the Walnut Street Theater here in Philly.
Yeah.
It was Elf, and they were going to have audio description. And there was one audio describer, and he didn't come in that night that we happened to be in the audience. And they felt so bad that they invited us back for another show that was a live audio description.
Yes.
Michael and Michelle thought that was the coolest thing they had ever experienced, you know, and they really made a big deal over the boys and all. But then a year later, Michael was the manager for the play, the Helen Keller play at his school. He was the whole, whatever they call it, the manager of the whole thing, right? He got the Walnut Street Theater people came and did live audio description for people in the audience at the theater. Oh, did my sound go out now?
Yep, I can see everything and I didn't see you. Okay, you're back.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I do.
So Michael was the manager of the theater of the show for Helen Keller and got the Walnut Street Theater live audio description folks came, did it with the headsets and everything.
Fantastic.
So people got to experience what that is. And everybody that experienced it was like, they thought it was the greatest thing in the world, that it was accessible, but nobody knew about it.
Well, and by the way, there are a lot of low vision and blind people that don't either. And you'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, I believe it, because we didn't know about it for a long time. And boy, what an incredible, it's just one more thing I always say, when the more independent anybody is, the more confidence grows. And when their confidence grows, they try new things. And that, I believe, is the track of how my boys have accomplished so much, as have so many other people that are succeeding without sight. All that independence, confidence, and all that goes together. And when they can do that, accessing, you know, teenagers all going to the movies together, and Michael doesn't have to have somebody sitting next to him describing it.
Oh, absolutely. And also all the recreation, the parks, the theaters, everything should be made accessible. The National Park Service are made accessible. All the museums, for the most part, are having accessible programs. There's so much you'll see that's going to be happening. There's so much there already. It's a really wonderful thing.
How about TV commercials? Is that coming along?
There are some, by the way, there are some. If you have on your SAP programming, your secondary audio programming, if there is a described commercial, you will hear it. AT&T is working on that right now. I believe Target does it. There's a number of them that are doing it now. So you're probably going to see more of them.
Oh, good. Because
the SAP will pick it up. If it's there, the SAP will pick it up.
We should try that then on some of them, because some of them are just pictures and music and with the words, you know, and my boys, that, of course, that's when they go get a drink or something. They're like, whatever.
Yeah. But, you know, I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Time code with that is pretty tricky. There's a reason. It's the time it's on the television. They can't stretch out the media. You know, it's a little bit different. If you do a radio ad, there's room where we can put in the description. There are different ways to do that. Or if it's an app, they're doing something on your phone, we might, you know, that's still in the works. And I think we'll see what happens. Some trailers are audio described now. They're not all audio described. We'll see. Listen, one thing at a time, and see how it works. We just, one thing at a time.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the fact that, and I smile about it, because the past 5 years it's exploded. And I just feel like it's all over the place. It's magnificent.
And this is only the beginning. Watch now. Now you're going to see it skyrocket, in my opinion. And the subject matter is going to be talked about a lot more. It'll be part of the bigger conversation of the umbrella of, should I say, inclusion and diversity. Mm-hmm. It's going to be much bigger. This is just what I see already happening with all my colleagues and people I'm connected to. And it's very exciting, actually.
It's so exciting. And here's a question I didn't think of before. I would assume then that this field of being an audio describer must be, well, maybe not booming, but it's got to be, is there a lot of opportunity there for people if they wanted to get involved here? How would they do that?
Yeah, again, that would be through the post-production houses who are hiring the voiceover staff. And they would audition, and they would find out whether or not these particular post-production companies need additional talent. Most of them now are able to do it out of their home. They have their home studios. At one time, a lot of them will be coming into the studio at the post-production company. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. In fact, I taught a class to, should I say, mid-track individuals that were in their entertainment, should I say, trajectory already. And all of them had different disabilities. I think a number of them, maybe 4 of them were blind. I think 6 were deaf. And the others had various disabilities, physical and those that were not seen. And I taught them what audio description was and where there were opportunities for careers for them, or where they might find their self involved. They could be a writer for the script, which is a very, very long process. They might want to just voice.
Oh, it went out again. It'll come back in a second. Yeah, I'm thinking okay, while we're waiting for the sound to come back, if you're watching or listening and you're interested in getting involved as an audio description specialist, it is such a necessary thing. It is such
Right.
an incredible
Right.
perk in this world. It shouldn't be a perk. It's a necessity. It's a cool thing. Okay, you were finished what you were saying.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there is, there's, I think, a big cause right now, or should I say a need, are audio description writers. And they actually are called audio describers. So they are taught how to actually write and time code media. And
Oh.
that's an area where I think we need even more people. I think there's a lot of voice talent out there, quite frankly, and a lot of audio descript narrators overlap audio description for media. So you'll find actors that come in, voice artists, audiobook narrators, they all overlap. I'm not saying there aren't places for people, because there are, but I think an even larger cause are really, really, really amazing writers, whether it's for theater, live theater, and doing live description, whether it is for museum tours, whether it's anything. It could be just about anything. So the writers are crucial. The voiceover artists are only as good as the script is. And then, of course, the time coding and the engineering and the directing and all of that. But really, that's an interesting area. So I encourage people to go to the ACB website. There's a lot of resources there. And Joel Snyder happens to be a very well-known educator. Most people know who he is. And Joel Snyder has been teaching audio description, and he does programs that run weeks long, different times of the year. He travels the world and does what he does. And there's different people that teach it, so to speak. But it depends on where you find yourself most interested. There is a company in Los Angeles called Audio Eyes, where I started my career. The engineers, some of them are blind. The proprietor is blind himself. And that's an incredible organization doing what they do.
Audio Eyes, he said, right?
Yeah. And they do great work there. So they like people also that might want to do what we call QCing, quality control. For example, somebody would like to listen to an audio description track along with the film and say, you know what, this works. No, it doesn't work. I didn't need you to say that. I heard the door shut. You don't need to tell me the door shut.
Okay.
Right? And so they have people that do QC, and it's often great to have people that are low vision or blind that would like to do QC because they're relevant. There's so many different things that could go on. I personally, if anyone's listening, this is my passion. My passion is to push out social media, push out conversations about audio description, and do more marketing around audio description in general in media. Because while we're all busy doing the work, there isn't enough, should I say, marketing around it. It's sort of a different area. There's the post-production, and then there's the people that are teaching, there's the people that are voicing. We're all busy doing different things. I actually coach every client I work with, any media client, on how to be sure that everything they've done is labeled. It gets into, if possible, their contracts for distribution. It gets attached to all the media, whether it's on an airplane or on a ship, or whether it's broadcast, or whether it's on the DVD. Label it. Do it in your website, try to get your distributors to promote it any way you can. And so this is where that conversation has not yet been, should I say, gotten, or has not become large enough for what I think would be the best way to do some of this. It's almost a job in itself. It's really, really a job in itself.
Yeah, but I think that you're exactly right. And you know what's about having more conversation about this whole process of audio description. Now, I was so, like I said, going crazy to talk with you because we've been on the receiving end of this, and it changed my boys' lives. I watched what it did for my boys' lives to be fully inclusive. But I have to tell you, for 5 o'clock here on the East Coast, on a Friday, anywhere, a Friday in the summer, and the amount of people that are on watching live right now and commenting. It's clearly something that is very interesting to talk about. People are interested. So you're exactly right. Then let's push more conversation out about this.
Absolutely. And all the companies that are doing this work, they're very busy, but I think we just need to talk about it as if we are I use the word loosely, marketing, but we are really raising the awareness while we're marketing the media, and it's sort of this whole bigger picture. And I think it's very powerful. But I've chosen my path to work with every single client from the inception of this process, teach them what it is. They then teach others. They tell their other fellow filmmakers, and I really handhold them to the finish line. And then I follow that media to be sure it gets to the end user, because a lot of times it doesn't. It might, there's a break in the chain somewhere. One end might get it, the other doesn't. And so I do a lot of project management on my time. I don't charge people for what I do. I do the entire thing.
Wow.
And so I decide where I'm going to do it, where I'm going to produce it, who I'm going to bring in on the project, who I'm going to hire to do the voice if it's not myself. And then I raise awareness and raise the bar for it. And so I do it one by one. So that's part of my journey, is educating people. And then also implementing grants, which I do for New York Women in Film and Television, New Filmmakers, Women in Film. What I do is I instate grants in the system, which weren't there, to raise awareness about audio description and captioning. And then I've done it for 5 years now for New York Women in Film and Television. And now I'm doing my first one for Women in Film. So this is the way we do it. We go in and we raise awareness, we teach people about it, then we get to raise that bar. And then we hope that more filmmakers will begin to catch on, and audience people and everybody that want to be part of it. It could come from many different sides. And this is the way we do it. But institutionally, we need to do it. We need to do it in the schools. We need to do it in the colleges. We need to make this part of every conversation where media is included.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, in the schools is where, that's why I was saying earlier that Michael and Mitchell and their friends are not understanding why the rest of the world doesn't operate. They've seen inclusion since the very beginning. They've seen, things have been made accessible for the most part. I mean, it was a lot of work in the very beginning.
Sure.
But when they have grown up like that, and then they're going out in the world that isn't accessible, they're like, what the heck? But the schools are a great spot. Now, of course, we're having a lot of issues with being online, which has driven me crazy, because we should have been able to figure this out as everybody goes online to
That's
have
right.
better accessibility. But we're getting there.
We're getting there. There's a lot around that too. I'll send you something else about that with virtual accessibility. But there's many things that you'll see, as I said, are going to come forward now, because we're going to have no choice but to do that, so that everybody is included in what's going to be happening in this pandemic. And while we're going through this phase, until we, God willing, come out the other side, we need to have a way to be accessible all the way around. But I encourage people, whoever is listening to this, that if you're involved in media, if you're a filmmaker, if you are involved in any capacity, to reach out. You're welcome to reach out to me personally as well. I'm happy to answer questions, and to really find out who else you should be talking to that wants to know and needs to know about it. And I myself am, as an individual, and Woman of Her Word is my business, I do give these grants, and I select them. I hand select them every year to what programs I'm going to give them to. Whether someone is an artist, they either are an artist themselves, they want to be an integrated program, they have a disability, and that disability could be various disabilities, and or they want to be a patron. I've made it my business to afford for them to do that. So that's in addition to what I do with my audio description. I give grants to students in college with disabilities in film school. So I do a lot of different things, and I'm always happy to redirect people to where I can to help them.
I love it. I'm feeling like I just did a global summit for the patient organization for my son's blindness a couple weeks ago, that we had families from 10 countries had never met before, and all the researchers and specialists in low vision and all. It was one of the most extraordinary things that has ever happened in my life. And we did it over 2 days over Zoom. I'm feeling like maybe we could gather, and I'm looking at who has tuned in here that I know is in the film industry, and I have the other folks that I mentioned. I'm feeling like we should do a little, some kind of a summit or something online where we have these conversations and have, calls to action that are specific, and get some stuff moving and connect people to you, to each other, to move this, this field, do our part here at Thriving Blind to move this further.
I think it's a great idea. I think any way that anyone feels motivated to, and there are people that have more knowledge about certain things than others, and sometimes it can be very linear what people are involved in terms of this industry. But I think there's a way to bring a collective consciousness together and an understanding, even though you may not understand the technology sometimes that goes with this. I pretty much can simplify it. I do a lot of panels and I teach a lot of different people about what it is. And I try to simplify it as best as I can. But here's one thing I'd like to say, and I think this is a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of filmmakers are often very excited about their media, and rightfully so, but they often are looking at foreign markets for distribution, which makes them very excited. What they unfortunately have overlooked sometimes is that the first language outside of our native language, wherever you are in the world, is the language of deaf and hard of hearing and the language of blind and low vision audiences. And in my heart, I believe those need to be addressed before the foreign languages.
Wow.
And that really says it all. This is our language, and these are inclusive in our world. So we can't leave out anybody that's part of our native language, despite how that language is translated.
That's magnificent. That's magnificent. You're exactly right. And I appreciate that passion and saying it like that, because it is the way that it needs to be.
It is. And I think that, again, everyone can be excited about lots of things in media. I'm very excited about every project I work on. By the way, are you an Oliver Sacks fan?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just finished his documentary, and it's outstanding.
Really?
Yeah, and it will be on PBS American Masters in April of next year. It's wonderful, and there may be a prior virtual distribution, but I have to tell you, it's a spectacular film. I'm also working on the Bee Gees documentary.
Oh, no way.
Yep, that'll be coming out, and I'm about to work on the audio description for the documentary about the Dalai Lama. So,
wow.
Yep, I picked some very, very extraordinary projects to get up close and personal with. And I love what I do so much.
How exciting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff. Anybody who's listening, go to my website, womanofherword.com. And all the films I've ever worked on are on my website. And there's links to where you'll find the actual film. But you'll find everything you need to know there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, you guys, womenofherword.com.
Woman of her word. Woman of her word.
Womanofherword.com. This has been, I knew this was going to be fun because I'm so interested. I'm so excited that all these other people, I actually put it on Twitter maybe 45 minutes before we got on, and people were sharing on Twitter and following it on Twitter, and people are just really, it's very interesting and exciting for me, and I'm happy that other people are excited. And now look, folks, we've ignited a spark here. We are gonna, audio description is gonna be what Thriving Blind keeps talking about now. You'll see it all over my social. I can just envision, I've been learning a lot about Instagram. I've been working with Tyler J. McCall with Instagram, and he's so big on stories. And I'm like, I'm getting better at Instagram stories, but this is the kind of stuff that is so interesting to be putting on Instagram stories, as opposed to my dogs that keep eating grass. Like, that's not fun.
Yeah. By the way, I want to say something else. For those of you that have not experienced audio description, if you want to go to my website and go to the audio description page, scroll down to the samples, and you'll see and you'll hear clips which give you variations of different audio description, educational, museum, film. Go there and experience it for those of you that have not. Or if you'd like to experience, my particular style is just mine. Everybody's different. But it's another way to have an experience and see the different genres.
Oh, that's perfect, because then they can actually understand what we have been talking about.
Right.
It's perfect. All right, you guys, go and do that, and then let me know what you think, and let me know if you find it. Go to that SAP on your TV. You can hear some of the shows with it, and I want you to just sit there and sit with it for a few minutes and understand that this is the other thing I want to make sure I say before we close out. So many people think that blindness and visual impairment is so sad and devastating, and oh my God, they can't access anything in the world. Okay, to know my boys and this whole Thriving Blind community, it can't be further from the truth, but that's what the majority of the world thinks. So when you sit with audio description for just 5 or 10 minutes and realize that blind and visually impaired people can do all the same things, they just access information in a different way. So my boys have their favorite shows and movies and now video games. They're accessing them just in a different way. I mean, and look, my boys were the first blind people I ever met in my life. So I started my journey very devastated and scared. But when I don't know if you saw my TED Talk, I had the change in perception when Michael was 3 years old and saw that he just does things a little bit different, but still has all the same, he goes about life the same as the rest of us. He just does things a little bit different. And I always say, a lot of times he does stuff way more efficient than I do.
I was going to say, I'm going to comment on that. I'm going to piggyback that. In my career so far, I've worked with so many different types of disabilities, films about disabilities. I support people behind the stage, in front of the stage with disabilities, behind the camera. I have to say that so many of the extraordinary human beings that I've met, those with vision loss as well, are probably some of the most amazing people on the planet, and have hearts beyond those I could ever possibly imagine. And their abilities are far beyond more than others even could have begin to imagine.
Yeah.
So in my world and what I've seen, in addition to what you have experienced as a mother, I am witness to so much grace and so much people excelling so well. There is nothing that there is really nothing people can't do with the help of others helping them do what we can do.
I love that. That was my son's message in his valedictorian speech too. You need to ask for help, but you also have to look for the folks that need your help. And that's how the world goes round.
Beautiful. I want to meet your children.
Oh, you have to meet them.
Okay, now I can see them.
They are a Netflix show in themselves.
So are you, by the way. Okay. So oh, well, listen, I hope I get a chance to see them somewhere, and I'll stay in touch with you. Let's see what we can do together, because more people doing more work is really impactful.
I love it. I am so happy that you took the time out of that insanely busy schedule that you have to chat with me, to educate our community, and now to have ignited something really cool that we're gonna do. So thanks so much for coming on, Michele, and thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a beautiful evening.
And bye everybody on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
What a great chat, right? I hope you got a ton of takeaways from that conversation. And if you know other people that can benefit from it, please share the video. I'm Kristen Smedley, and I am so happy that you're here with us for the Thriving Blind interview series. Remember, check out thrivingblind.com to get all the information about how to get up close to all of the mentors and members in that program. See you next time.